So you are fascinating to me because you led a very different life than a lot of modern women in this, and you've been very open about that in the sense that you married an older guy. Your prescription for happiness for women, for those who are seeking, to want to be a housewife, who want to do all that, your prescription is antithetical to what is preached in 2022 society. Modern feminists can't stand you. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. They don't like you. And they don't like you for many reasons. We're going to talk about why. But you did this interview with the Huffington Post. They actually wrote an article about you, but they asked you to weigh in. So credit to them on that. They don't always do that. Sometimes they just write it and you're like, oh, did I say that? No, I didn't. And people responded to this pretty vigorously. First, I want to pull up what you said in a tweet that drove them mad. And this has driven, by the way, people, the left wing lost their minds on this. And I say the left wing because it's mostly the left wing. Can you pull up that tweet from, I don't know, Champagne Eurico?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is you. This is video. And look, he says they really got mad in the comments because they did. The comments were like, I mean, crazy. This is what she said. This is just Pearly that was talking to you, right?
Mm-hmm. This was on her TikTok that the left has since bombed. So she is no longer on TikTok. She's on her fourth TikTok account. She's not stopping anytime soon. So she
asks you about your situation, your marriage. We can see a beautiful ring on your finger. You're married. You seem happy.
Thanks.
Okay. Congratulations, by the way, on that. So let's play this for the audience.
Okay, Allie, show me your ring.
Oh, here.
Now, tell me what you do for a living.
Oh, I love my husband.
And how did you get that awesome job?
Well, I became a better human being, and I became feminine and also shocking, submissive. So that was the secret.
So what are your tips to women that want to be a housewife?
To embrace it. It's an actual job. You just can't get it in the public or private sector. Like you need a man to hire you for it, but that's okay. Because if you think about it, you submit to your boss who makes you clean stupid shelves at your retail job, right? Like, wouldn't it be better if you were cleaning your own shelves at home? You know what I mean? And your boss wants to sleep with you in a good way. In a good way.
And where do you meet these men?
Well, I think women should work for the men that they want to pursue. I know that sounds crazy, but it's really easy. So if you think about it, like you want a lawyer, right? So then you should be a paralegal, or if you want a dentist, then you should be a dental hygienist. But these are considered, I guess, high value status professions. But I think that's a really good model that not enough women utilize, because women will bully the woman who is the secretary that marries the doctor, okay? But who has the last laugh? Like her in her McMansion with her husband who's high and the babies. Like that's
okay.
Last laugh.
So feminist ads exploding everywhere. Do you understand why this got under the skin of modern feminists?
Oh, well, yes. They can't decide if they want to talk about romance in terms of capitalism or if they want to talk about romance like in a traditionally artistic way. So they're kind of torn between that. And to me, I mean, I think it can be both. I think there's logistical aspects to romance. But it's also very cringe to watch. Oh my goodness!
Why is it cringe for you to watch it?
Well, it's not what I expected to go viral for, because I was just playing around with Pearl in the back of an Uber.
Right.
In the back of an Uber. And I think the funny thing about it is, too, I wore that Wojak dress on accident. I actually love that dress. It was $16 from Old Navy. And then, in the background, I think that song, if you listen to the lyrics, I think it's, I can't recall, but it says like, pretty face, bad character. Mm-hmm. So everything was just very right about that moment. But yes.
Do you stand by what you said in that clip, though?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, factually, it's girl game. Women need to wake up. Y'all are dating aimlessly. Like, how about put some respect on my name? You're welcome. You're welcome. It's fine to hit on your doctor at your annual checkup. Like, what do you have to lose?
So, but let me ask you this word submissive, because I think just having grown up in New York City my whole life, I was surrounded by, I went to Columbia. I was like, the left was just everywhere. And modern feminism it's just like coming through everyone's pores there. So when I see this, I still have the receptors. Like, I personally don't share a lot of their views, their worldviews, but I have the receptors where I know, oh, that's going to get them. Oh, the word submissive immediately will drive them crazy. Mm-hmm. When you say that word, what does that look like in a home in terms of like, how does that play out, a submissive role?
Well, for my marriage dynamic, I give my husband authority with responsibility.
I think Rollo talks about this, where men are just given responsibility without authority, and that's essentially slavery. But I'm okay, and I'm comfortable with that. So there's a lot of things that go on where my husband will have the final word, and I look to him for guidance because he can think about ways to protect me that might not even be on my mind. So I like to have that sounding board, and I've been alive the whole time I've been married, so I think he's doing a good job.
Does that mean that you don't have a say? Like ultimately, because what they envision when they critique you is like almost like having another dad. They're like, oh, well, I already have a dad. I don't need another dad. I don't want to be put in my place. They want, they say, well, does the woman have a voice in those situations? So does that mean that you no longer have a voice? Or does that ultimately mean that, like, are you not part of the decision-making process if you're submissive? Or are you part of it, but ultimately saying you get the final say? Tell me like what that looks like in terms of your husband decides that it's time to move. Does he come to you and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. What do you think? Or is it, we're moving here, end of story? What does submissive mean?
So submissive, it depends on who you're asking, because when people hear submissive, they think kink, which obviously
Right.
is just, a way to pervert conventional gender roles. So if you're living in that kink dynamic, from my understanding, from the women that I've talked to, yes, whatever the man says goes, but they are basically agreeing to be a submissive to a dominant. And that's a completely different thing that does not exist in my life. I do not want to know anything about it. Unfortunately, I have come to find out. So for myself and my marriage, it's really just letting a man be a man. I don't understand what's the point of arguing with him, because if we have to move, it's probably for a reason, and he probably thinks that it's a good idea. He is going to get my input though, and those things have happened as well, because we're military, and so there's some career opportunities that come up, and he says, hey, I can pursue this, but this is what might happen. What do you think? And then we make decisions based off of that. But your husband's not going to be perfect. So if you do let your husband lead your marriage and he makes a mistake, he takes the responsibility and accountability for that. Yes, but it's not the end of the world, because how many times do we make mistakes as wives, right? Has the world ended yet? No, I'm sure I made a mistake this morning. Like, who knows?
Do you understand like the language of, because you made an analogy in there about having a boss and having a husband. That's going to drive people nuts too, because obviously they're like, well, I don't want my husband to be my boss. And they often will use the word, and I've taken heat for using the word partner, because, and not to say you're not in a marriage, but a partnership feels like everyone comes to the table and kind of works through. For example, and the way it works in my house, and I always say, is that my husband will say, hey, this is going on. What do you think about this? These are the options we have. I weigh in. And he always feels like, I want your input because I want us both to be happy in the decisions that we make. So we really make these decisions together. I wouldn't be comfortable in a situation where I felt like my husband was a boss, because I can go to work and get that, or I can, I don't even want that at work. That's why I'm doing a partnership at work. But there has to be a distinction for some women between a boss-employee dynamic and a marriage. Now, you may feel differently. You may be really comfortable with that, but just articulate for me a little bit about what you meant with the analogy to a boss, because I think that's really interesting.
I would say it's partly that feminist thing where you can work and be a boss babe, and if your actual boss, your employer, asks you to get something done out of nowhere during the workday that you weren't expecting, you might be a little bit disgruntled, but you say, okay, and you'll get it done because that's the person that's signing your paycheck, right? So if you're a stay-at-home wife and if something comes up, hey babe, can you get this errand done? A lot of women will push back against their husbands. Well, that wasn't in my schedule. Well, this, that, and the third. And it's crazy to think about it, because it's not free labor. I know people like to say that it's free labor. It's absolutely not. So why is it okay if your employer asks you to get something done around the house, but if your husband does, then you've got hell to pay? But for myself too, it's just, I've always been a really excellent worker. That's what happens to high IQ girls when they go to public school education. They teach you how to be a good worker, which I have lots of thoughts and opinions about public school. My kids aren't going, but that's the way that I thought about it, because I want to take pride in my work. I was in the military. I was in the military. I made E5 in 3 years as 60 whiskey, so a combat medic specialist. So I just like, the prestige, I guess, of having a job, right? And so to me, when I think about being a housewife, I'm like, yes, like I'm gonna make this house great. I'm gonna make this meal great. I want to be employee of the month every month. But that's just my perspective, and it probably is because I'm an American woman. But that's where it's coming from, and that is also the language that a lot of women understand right now, because we are ingrained in capitalism. And I don't have a problem with capitalism. Capitalism actually enables housewives to exist, so shout out to that. But yeah, it's a lot of women out there that they would rather die than stay home. I'm like, what's the nightmare? I mean, we have so many machines and you could work from home. Like, say less. Like, sign me up.
If you want to watch the full episode, you're going to click right here. And if you want to ask me a question one-on-one, you want to do a one-on-one FaceTime with a group of your friends, whatever you want, you need to download Connect right now. Click right here and let's get talking.